Just to start off, I think round of introductions, if you wouldn't mind, Johanna, I'll ask you first and then take it away.
Thank you. So lovely to be here with you. Love the fact that we've all had a drink of wine before we come in. So yeah, very good. My name is Johanna Hutchinson. I am the Group Chief Data Officer for DA Systems.
You say you had wine before you came up. I brought a beer with me. Good luck. Let us know where that's going to lead us to. I'm Paul Hollands. I'm the Chief Data and AI Officer at AXA UK and Ireland.
Hello, everybody. Nick Blewden, Data Director from Co-op.
And I'm Sam Hancock, and I run data at Octopus Energy.
Thank you all very much. And as you can see, a fairly diverse group here for this discussion. So I'm interested for you to each really play on that of your backgrounds and bring that to the discussion here today. So we'll start off with a nice, easy one. Is there a particular decision that you've made in your role that you think, yep, that one is going to outlive my tenure in this role? That's going to be the one that people remember me for. So I'll go to you first, Well.
So when I describe my role, I often talk about how it's silly broad, looking after like 20 different divisions. Octopus Energy isn't just putting power to your house. It's electric vehicle leasing, it's offshore wind farm investments, everything in between. And it's a tech business, so everybody likes data. It's been really nice today talking to people who have all these problems and people who don't like data. They like data too much, almost. And the way that we've set it up is that every single person has basically got their own small data team in a federated model, which it's been a wonderful thing for the business. It really helped grow to have the data really nearby to the problems. The challenge, and the bit that I'm hoping is going to outlive my tenure, is that also means that loads of people do the same work slightly differently. So that means it can't be, if Germany is a really good piece of analysis, we can't move that to Italy or Japan. So what I've actually created pretty much the first time is this true global network of people who work on the same problems. We've invested to have the data at the bottom they use be the same, working out all the local nuances for different countries, and starting to build out our semantic layer on top of that to have the same metric. So when one person says, this is how many households we have that we give power to, another one says the same. It's not exactly like changing the absolute world, but it saves so much time. And it's also saving us and all the countries just continually adding people to do the same job that somebody else is doing.
Fantastic. Nick, how about you? What's the one thing that you think, yep, that'll do it?
Well, I'm only about 18 months into role, so I think I reserve the chance to have a few more in the future, but I'll tell you my answers so far. So Co-op it has quite a unique culture. Like, everybody is very ingrained in kind of being ethical and doing the right thing. We have food stores, but we also have funeral homes. We actually fund 38 academy schools. So it's quite a nice place to work. It's quite an enjoyable place to work. So everyone's trying to do the right thing. When I joined as effectively CDO, data director at Co-op, my team were really working really hard trying to do the right things, but we weren't necessarily as efficient as we could be. So I brought in more of an iterative product, agile mentality, and also focused on kind of reusable data products that we could build and lift and drop. So earlier in the year, we launched what we call Store Insights. So it's effectively a mobile app that all of our store managers can see all of their live metrics every day, instead of having various printouts in different places, which just blew my mind in 2025. But all their live metrics every day, so they could do what they wanted to do, which was serve customers, make people happy. And we rolled that out across our food stores in February, and we're just about in 4 weeks' time to roll it out for all of our funeral care homes as well. So people can basically trust their numbers, really have faith in how they're performing, and do what they love, which is customer service and speaking to customers.
So you mentioned culture. And I think that for me is the difference we can make in the roles, is actually how do you shift the culture of an organization. And that for me is kind of where I feel personally how I can make a difference to the decisions we make. I can see Zach sat right at the front there. So what I'm about to say is about to play into, well, you can validate whether this is true or not, actually. 10, 11, 12 years ago, we had this kind of conviction that in banking, that actually being able to build that kind of personal rapport with a customer and that relationship would be at the center of how you communicate, how you build a lasting relationship with customers. And so one of the things we did was kind of start to think about customer decisioning. How do you start to move away from campaigns to that ongoing dialogue, always on? And so we implemented capability around how do you start that across 21 different channels. And some of it was really in kind of quite basic stuff, like just saying happy birthday. And I used to spend a lot of time in Wood Green in a branch up there, was the one I was twin to, and just seeing the powerful impact of someone coming in and someone actually over the counter saying happy birthday to an 80-year-old lady who had no one in her life and just burst into tears. And so very small example, but actually you see a real tangible difference between how you drive an organization to go from just trying to sell stuff to build a relationship, build a dialogue, build trust, and actually how that starts to translate across the organization in terms of customer engagement. And that was something we did in retail. We then moved that across the commercial bank and the private bank as well. And that, for me, I think was one of the big decisions in my career where I look back on now and has actually made a real tangible difference. I know it's kind of moved on and on and on. The sophistication the guys at NatWest now have on it is amazing, but I'm always very proud as I look back at that and the difference we made culturally overall.
Yeah.
So lots with people, isn't there? So I'm going to give a different example, because I think the essence is people and data go so closely together that actually the impact has got to be with people. The impact has got to be with people, because from what I see as well, some of the most basic, making sure data flow works, has such a demonstrable impact into the business that there's many things that we could do that actually would have an impact. But the people, making sure they're happy, they retain their knowledge, they're staying in the business, that's impactful. But to give a different example, during the pandemic response, I was responsible for the analytics and publishing a lot of the data that came from there. And we had a moment, it was September, October 2020, we'd gone back into lockdown. And what we didn't have were the metrics that would enable us to monitor whether we should come out of lockdown or whether we should stay in. We didn't know what they were. And when we were watching the 5 o'clock bulletins, if you remember those,
Oh, yes.
a lot of the early graphics that were going on today were getting slated, absolutely slated for not being understandable, comprehensible. So in that month, what we did, and under great stress, because we're building an organisation, so Test and Trace became the size of Asda in 6 weeks, which was, no systems, no databases underneath them, nothing. And what we did in that month, whilst everyone else was in lockdown, was take out all of the current standard ways of reporting and reinvent them so that actually they were understandable. And I just had a visible moment which impacted both my family and work, where my 11-year-old son was doing his maths homework sat on the desk at the side. And we realised that actually we didn't know if this new metrics were going to land in the infographics. And they were all heat maps and different graphs. You remember turn the curve, turn the curve, turn the curve. God, just waiting for that data point coming in every day to turn that curve was a freaking panic. But we had my son who was sat there, and so we said to him, come here, what does that graph say? And we worked out that actually if he could interpret the graph, we stood a chance on TV, and we then went on to publish that on the COVID dashboard. But having the bravery to stop, when something's not going right, and we needed a lot of senior support to make sure that was right, and then trust those people around you to be able to redeliver a product in a better manner, and support them to do that is one of the most impactful things, I think.
What I love about this is when I was sitting down and doing the research with many of the people in this room of, what should we be talking about at this event? And I wanted to almost be a bit hyperbolic with the whole changing the world thing. But I think what's really striking in all of your answers is we're looking at data foundations, trust, impact, simplicity. We're lacking those buzzwords that we all see on LinkedIn. We're not talking about the big sexy, let's be honest. We're talking about the real. And I think that's such a key takeaway from each of your answers, is actually going back to basics and what's going to really move the needle and change the world, maybe of your organization, of your teams, but actually that's going to be making the difference. Now, part of the plan of, supplying some alcohol here is for this next question.
More one.
Is this a planned question or?
It's a genius plan. No, you can answer on behalf of yourselves, but also looking out to the room at the amazing CDOs that are sat in front of you. What's the boldest thing you think they should be doing today, which many maybe not be doing, maybe due to confidence, maybe due to resource or limitations? But what's the big bold thing you wish they were doing? I'll come to you first, Paul.
It's a lesson not to get eye contact, isn't it? I think give up power. There's a tendency in the roles that we do to want to own the thing. And it's human nature, which is kind of control to some extent. You build a data strategy, you build the team, you work with the business to understand how that enables the strategy. And then the first thing you want to do is then go and tell people how to do it. And I think my learning over the years, and believe me, I've learned this the hard way, is actually sometimes you're better off just actually giving up power into the business areas and actually letting them own that, drive that, and support them in doing that. And it drives the sponsorship, it drives the engagement, that real sense of ownership of actually delivering the outcomes for it. Because let's be honest, most people in this room will have experiences either themselves or with colleagues who, in roles like these, the tenure is renowned to be relatively short. And actually normally that comes from the fact you haven't delivered value. And actually how you start to think about enabling others to deliver value and you enable, I think for me is one of the most powerful lessons I've learned, and the thing I think we should all be much bolder about. And it's not the thing that comes naturally. But if you can get over that hurdle, I think it is a really powerful way to actually show the extent of the impact you can make.
Yeah, Johanna.
And be the thought leader. Show your organization what it is that's coming next and what's going to change. So those conversations that you have with finance, with commercial, with HR, we talk a lot in these forums about what the impact of AI will be, how that will change the workforce, how that will change the way that we do things. But we need to tell the story of what those changing trends are, because they're changing so quickly, people can't get up, and translate that into the functions. They'll see those changes. So what does that mean for financial reporting? What is that going to mean in terms of resource planning? What is that going to mean in terms of, product delivery in any of your areas? And how do you translate that round? Because once you can start to have that conversation that is outside of the day-to-day, but setting the direction for the future, then actually you'll get more momentum in your day-to-day work as well. So, no matter what it is that you're doing today, whether you're prototyping your first AI or putting it into operation or still working on AI and automation, which I see now at the opposite ends of the scale, all of that goes easier when actually there's a common understanding of where the sector's going and what the opportunities will be in a safe way, relative to your organisation.
I think it links nicely with what you were saying in your previous answer around that trust as well. As not just be the thought leader, but be the trusted thought leader that people go, yeah, they know what they're talking about, and we have that buy-in and that trust. Yeah.
So I thought of this one after a beer earlier. So this is in terms of the controversial one. And it's partly because I'm only a year into this role myself, and I've been in slightly different areas for the last 10 years. But I think if you can earn the trust, and you can earn the trust of especially your senior stakeholders, then as much as possible, ignore the numbers at the end in terms of the value impact of what you're doing. I've never seen, it's my controversial thing here, I've never seen that to be that good. It can always be argued. And it ends up by being this back and forth argument, which I personally say people come in with an opinion and they find the data that matches it. And I am very lucky to be in a tech organization which trusts data, and I'm lucky to have a pre-existing relationship with one of the founders. So maybe it's a special place that I'm in, but I never have to have a conversation. And if I ever moved into that way, I would try to avoid it like the plague, because I just think it will end up, whatever they've decided already, there'll be some data that shows it. And I'm just in a fortunate position to not have to do that. Instead, I have the people as close to the decision makers as possible, like in the local teams. I often sit as part of the senior leadership team, working the CEO, CFO directly. Then that local CEO can make decisions about how much they want to invest in data and what they see from the value. It's not like I did 7% of that project and they did 12% or something else that gets to a number. The decisions can be made by the people directly next to the data people.
I know there's going to be several people, or probably more, that are very, very jealous of not having to prove themselves every day and be in that environment, as you say, coming from that industry and background, that you are, it's a bit of a moot topic. It's like, well, yeah, obviously, and carry on. And yeah, like I said, there's probably going to be quite a few jealous people in the crowd for that one. Nick?
So yeah, I was thinking about the boldest or bravest thing. I was going to build on Johanna's point here. There's a lot of talk about AI, everywhere. 99% of our business is run on structured data. It's not run on unstructured data. So I think as data leaders, we have a responsibility to be thought leaders, talk about the future, but don't be afraid of the grey zone, the nuance to the message, because we're in a hype cycle right now. We're in real frothy high of a hype cycle, and there's huge potential in AI, and it will not just sit on unstructured, but it will be a layer over structured. But we've had some really good conversations today, and in almost all of them, a good portion of the value came back to quality data, data standards, actually integrating structured data rather than even using unstructured data at all, or documenting a process or putting digitization over a process rather than trying to put AI over documents over an unstructured process. We've got some really good live AI production use cases at Co-op over legal contracts and wills and family trees and unpicking pictures, which is brilliant. But it's not 99% of the organization. So, the press, the noise, the hype, I would just say, don't chase the easy route. Take that money, take that investment, but just try and educate on at the same time,
And I think that you make the point there that I think it's actually really difficult to do when you've got, potentially a CEO and board are coming to you like, AI is great. Everyone's talking about it in my WhatsApp groups. And you've got to kind of stand there and go, yeah, it is great. And it actually takes a lot of confidence to stand up there and kind of push back in that way, I think. Now, I do want to kind of pivot the conversation into the people aspect. Selfishly, it's my favorite area of data. I think we can sometimes, events similar to these, not like ours, but similar to these, you can get caught in the techie parts of the conversation, but actually we're feeding customers or patients or clients, that there's people at the end of this, but also people within our teams and our organizations. And I think sometimes that can fall to the background of many discussions. So what I'd like to know is, what people first principle do you anchor your leadership in when it comes to making high stake decisions? Nick, I'll come back to you first for that one, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I guess at Co-op we're a bit different to most organizations. We're member owned, so we don't have shareholders, we don't have private equity backing or owned by the wealthy few. We're owned by the many, so we do listen to our members regularly. We have a whole sort of democratic process around that, lots of focus groups, all sorts of things. But the leadership and all the managers within Co-op do live by that. I spend a lot of time in Co-op stores. I go to Co-op funeral homes to really try and understand what they do and what they want. So when we spend money or invest in AI, we do it with our members' money, in effect. So we do really try and have a conscience about what we do and not be too sort of frivolous and wasteful, I guess. But I guess interestingly, our exec have three aspects to their monetization and scorecard. It's economic value, it's social value, and it's democratic value. So it is run the business, but it's also trying to help the communities that we're in. So Co-op's donated £127 million since 2017 to local charities. We fund 38 schools. We do all sorts of things in the community quite quietly. So, this discussion is also about impact.
Yeah.
So I would say, everybody think about what you can do. As leaders, we cast a long shadow, and whether it's us or our organizations, just try and do what you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Johanna, how about you?
I can take it a slightly different direction. So we, at another event, not this one, we do some leadership training for chief data officers. And what became really apparent really quickly is that chief data officers, heads of data, however you brand yourselves, don't do good leadership because they don't understand themselves and they don't do the research on their own organisation and understand how to lead within their organisation. This is different from your own leadership style. So I asked you guys the question, do you know the culture of your organisation? There are classic models for different cultures in different organisations. Different organisations work differently based on the cultures within which exist within them. Do you know your own leadership style? Do you know your stakeholders and their leadership styles? Do you know how to bring those three things together? If you can bring those three things together, then it doesn't matter the size or the scale of the decision you have to make, because you understand what your levers are to help you make them and to help bring people along with you. So if you're shooting from the hip and you're going in with your nice shiny PowerPoint slides and you're not doing the pre-work for that and not really thinking through the psychological aspects of leadership and what style you're going to bring into that room on that day, depending on those people and that culture, then your impact will be less. So that's how I go about it.
I'm going to predict a question that will come in, no doubt. Have you got any top tips for doing that kind of self-work and really kind of understanding those, as you say, those three areas?
Yeah, so I work with a coach. I've always worked with a coach. I particularly work with a coach much more closely when I start a new job and go into a new organisation, because personally, I'm really bad at my own admin. So I will not prioritise myself, against family and job and la la la. I won't prioritise myself. So I put the time in with the coach and they prioritise me into the work that must be done to make sure that I'm successful in post.
Love it. Love it.
I think my answers has changed actually probably over the last 6 months or so. If you think about where we're heading over the next 3-4 years, I think the level of transformation we'll drive through organizations is probably beyond any comprehension of what we've seen previously. If you think about contact centers and disruption caused through that, the efficiencies that people talk about and what you'll see at that kind of headcount level, I think for me, where I'm kind of finding myself going to at the moment is actually how do you start to prepare an organization for what is a transformation, tech transformation, AI transformation beyond any comprehension of what we've seen previously. And so for me, we talk a lot about this kind of phrase, moral obligation, which is how do you take people on that journey? And so we're working really closely with we've got a new chief people officer, and actually, first conversation we've had is actually less so about how do you build a people strategy, how do we build a people AI strategy? How do we start to talk to the organization around the difference this is going to make, the impact on jobs, actually helping people understand that we don't know all the answers, but actually we will think about reskilling programs, we will think about how we take them on that journey. I think most organizations, and kind of taking a random guess, not everyone is London-based in their organizations. We have contact centers in Middlesbrough, we have contact centers in Morecambe, and every organization in the UK has benefited from relatively favourable environments to go and set up a contact centre in the north of England or somewhere like that. And so we've benefited from this, we've provided employment, and then we are going to start to change the nature of work. So what is our obligation to then change that? So that's what we're thinking about at the moment, which is, should we actually just offer massive reskilling programs to help people up that value curve? Or then what is the level of transformation we're going to drive and the nature of work changes? So as you move into an agentic world, actually these people who are brilliant at this process here could actually be the person who we reskill to actually oversee an agentic workforce. And that's the kind of live conversation we're having at the moment. So, I'd have answered very differently if you'd asked me this 6 months ago, but actually we've set out what 2029 looks like at AXA, and now we're moving towards that. And actually my conviction on that has changed massively around less so the data teams and things like that. It's actually the rest of, 7,500 people who work at AXA. What does this mean? Where will you be in 2029? And what's our role to help you get there? Yeah. So that's very much the people principle that we're applying at the moment.
I love the number around culture and values, and it's similar to what I was going to talk about. So I'll try to be brief since we have beer waiting for us at the end. But we have roughly 3,000 energy specialists, call center operators, and we put so much trust into them. If you call up and say you've recently been involved in near bereavement, they can send out flowers. If we're in a mistake, they can just send the person money, and we give them that full trust and the accountability that goes alongside that. And I think this is across the entire organization. When I think about Octopus, and what I try to do in the data team as well, is to say, you are responsible for what you do. You are an adult. I'm not going to lead you by the hand. Like, we recently did an offsite, and simple stuff. It's like, sort out your own travel, do all of this, get yourself there, do this, because we don't want to do this. Essentially, you should look after yourself. And having that full level of trust then means that people can then spot for themselves, oh, here's an issue. Here's something I do. And actually see all the time people going, I'm doing this process and it doesn't make sense anymore. And they've got the psychological safety to put their hands up because they're not like, oh, I'm going to lose that. It's like, oh, that's exalted. That's the kind of thing that we have a weekly family dinner on a Friday where tens of thousands, or over 10,000 people join. And we talk about this kind of stuff, like somebody found something and now they've found this new area. And we celebrate that. And I think you have to do this from the culture, from the values of the whole organization. It's hard to maintain. Again, the question that's asked, we actually have recently started 2 sets of training programs for leaders. One for relatively new managers, people coming the first time. It's like, how do you manage in this culture? Because naturally it's hard to squash down and do it in my way. And you can, when people manage for the first time, they're not always good at giving people that space. But actually, I say just as important was also get the more senior leadership. How do they make sure that they take the people on the journey? And it's really important to have the new people and the people coming in externally or have been around for a while to be pushing the culture forward, to making sure that we're ready for the future.
As leaders, I'm sure you've all had moments where you've thought, this is why we do it. And you look around your room and you think, yeah, this is why we've done it. So I'd like you to each tell us a story where you felt your work have a real important impact.
Well, I'm going to sneak in 2 if that's okay. I've kind of got a slightly gloomy one and a slightly hopeful one. I'll do gloomy first. The co-op actually had a cyber attack this year. It was really tough. People don't really see the people impact behind these things and how hard people work. But in effect, probably about the 14th day of working flat out, I took a day off and I had a pre-booked game of golf with some friends. And we were playing golf. We were on like the 7th hole and I got a call and I was like, oh God, what's that? Took the call. And basically because we'd isolated our systems and done all sorts of other things to protect things, we were in the situation where unless we could get a certain data feed out in the next 8 hours, we were going to have to cancel all funerals in the UK the next morning. Now, that's a situation that you don't let happen. So effectively, called the team, all pulled together. Everybody just didn't matter about job descriptions, role descriptions, whoever was doing what. Got it done, got the data out by hook or by crook. Everything was okay. But I think sometimes just work kind of goes to the side and you really have to remember what you're here for. And certainly, vulnerable people, bereavements, different things, you just on a human level can't let that happen. So that was the gloomy one, tick. Slightly better one, before all of that struggle and strife, we had a wonderful day in a co-op academy in Manchester where we went in and we did 7 back-to-back sessions with the different years in this school and taught them about AI. We did lots of games and taught them about the future of work and how AI might change things. And I remember there was one question from an 11-year-old, and I think 3 days prior, the DeepSeek Chinese model had come out, and it had blown everybody away by how cheap and good it was. And this 11-year-old put his hand up at the end, and it was just an open Q&A, and sort of said, "Oh, I've heard about the DeepSeek model. Do you think having alternate models competing against each other in different styles and personalities will be a factor in processes in the future?" And I was just like, oh my God. I'm not worried about AI taking my job. This 11-year-old, he is something else. So, wonderful day, but it just goes to show, we've got so much talent in our future generations. We just got to embrace it. So.
There's a friend who has a 10-year-old who I would definitely hire. He's really on it. So I'm relatively fortunate that I'm an Octopus for a few of the questions being asked, but one is actually the impact of the data on actually the products we can provide for the people of this country, and actually I say the stability of the energy grid. So I've been involved in a few since I've started. I think the most interesting one is a thing called Intelligent Octopus Go. Recommend everybody gets it if they have an electric car. But basically, the energy grid in the past, everybody uses energy when they come home to put on their tea for their kids. You see the spike, and that's when all the gas peakers have to turn on. And then you've got the problem when electric cars, people driving them as well, they come home, they plug them in, and then it adds to that peak. And it can basically break the whole system. But we've designed a product, and data being so core to all of this, which means that you come home, you plug your car in, and with the new technology that's come out, we can use the excess battery to actually power the grid, to actually fix it there, and then recharge overnight. Now, this product, and the reason why I'm happy about it is because it was done partly by one team, but then another team, people who do electric vehicle leasing, were like, oh, actually, that's useful as well. And then another one who does installation of electric vehicle chargers at your home, like, oh, actually, maybe we can put all these together and basically mean that now we basically create a new product, again, the teams working together, which means people can get themselves a car with all the energy they need to make it run, the charge and sort at home and everything, which is going to mean that for like a fixed fee of like less than 300 quid a month, it's pretty good. But the thing that I like about the impact of it is it's hard to get some people to understand electric vehicles in these different ways. And we are building products in these different teams, and I'm helping, and the team is helping, the data teams, bring that together to create like one simple proposition which can be used by basically anybody.
Can I tell you my favourite Octopus scenario that comes to me?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to love this one. Any more Octopus customers? There you go. There you go.
Live customer feedback.
Yeah.
Octopus take on your
Consequences on the nation when you turn around and tell us that electricity is going to be free from 2 till 3 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
You don't go out, you schedule all your appliances, and then they've all got to come off again by 3 o'clock, right?
Yeah. And some people, the first time we did this on the other way around, like the turn downs, people would sit in the dark for an hour. With a blanket on. Just
Gamify energy across the whole of the UK.
That's right.
Jan, do you want to give a response?
So I had a really recent one where we did our annual awards, so our STARS awards that came forward. So we have 7 big awards that come through. And we're really trying to build the prominence of data and the data team in the organisation as well. So we, in an organisation that, of course, is defence. And so there's a lot of heroism and there's a lot of big tech type stuff. So we're really trying to build prominence of data and the importance of data and the outputs that come from the data teams. So 7 awards, first 5 are individual awards for superstars that have done brilliant things, wonderful. And then the last 2 are team awards. And this year we got both the team awards, which is fantastic. So I was very pleased about that one. An example from a past life, we had an outbreak of polio in northern London a few years ago. And we didn't know where it would come from or why it was coming about. Vaccination of children's lower, all these types of things. So lots of factors involved. And I ran a wastewater programme at the time where we were collecting samples of wastewater, and we were able to use those samples to detect disease and the prevalence of disease at different parts of the country. So we rolled out within about 5 days, I think, the wastewater programme in northern London. And we were able to detect polio with the wastewater. And we're also able to detect the variant. And by being able to detect the variant, we were then able to match that with populations in New York and in Israel. So we then understood the populations that were contracting polio with the children population that didn't have a lot of vaccination in the communities, and then had a tri-national campaign to support the eradication of that in the area. That was cool, data-driven.
Someone who's worked in financial services for all his life, coming after that is somewhat complex. I have a thread of thought who's gone through my career, and it kind of grows as you get a bit older, which is, what good have I actually done?
Right.
It's all right. It's okay. You have actually done good.
More beer.
No, that still doesn't help either, actually. I think, interesting, your first one, some of the awards was actually where I was going to go in my answer, but in the spirit of not repeating, many moons ago, back to NatWest again, 2012, there was a very, very large systems incident. So the mainframe system had a overnight update. Someone tried to back it out and did a terrible job of backing it out. And the overnight batch ran, but ran incorrectly. And what it led to was a whole load of issues around fees, interests, charges, and so on and so forth. And the problem with that in a banking system is at some stage you start to then go through into the next payment cycle. And we were about 4 days out from the next start of the statement cycle. So kind of day 1 through to 21, I think it was. And at that point, it gets baked in to you kind of interest upon interest, interest upon fees and so on. Actually trying to unpick this as a bank is almost impossible. We split, I had the fortune, one of the two, I was still undecided which it was, of actually leading the kind of retail bank's response to this. So 17 million customers, you can see what had happened. And we had a team who essentially in 72 hours rebuilt the banking system twice. So code which explained what had happened and then explained what should have happened. So for every single customer, for every single transaction, you had the delta across all the products of what the variance was. And so we could calculate very, very clearly how you'd reconstitute that customer back to where they should have been at the point before they then cycled through to the next statement. You bake this in. That was 72 hours I probably wouldn't like to repeat. So you'd understand at the end of that why sleep deprivation is a torture technique. But what we did was an incredible piece of work that saved the bank. I think it was £80 million in the end, in terms of not having to kind of overcompensate. We had a scenario which was if you had gone through that, how much you'd have to compensate to back yourself out of that. And it was this incredible, powerful piece of work of some amazingly talented human beings who came together and worked non-stop to recode this thing. And then the next 21 days, where every single day you're running batch files to then manually inject into the process to unwind everything, letters out to customers, the whole CRM piece around that, and to essentially bring the bank back over a month to where it should have been originally. It was amazingly to see actually how people come together. And that's one of those occasions where you actually see the true difference that a team of people against a common goal working literally around the clock can actually make. But then also just how people kind of coalesce around certain things. I'm going to show my age here now. You remember in Excel, they had the limit of 65,000 rows. And I remember we put the first batch through. I was like, shh, actually, I swear, probably should do it. And you just look at it and go, hang on, it's cut off. Well, we don't have 65,000 customers for this one.
Yeah.
And you had, I think, 80 people on the call scratching their heads, and someone just went, oh, Excel, that's the problem. And this kind of flip, and just it was just really nice to see actually how people come together around this thing as well. So that's probably the one I'd lean to from a long time ago, and I don't wish to repeat it, but it was just a brilliant, brilliant team effort and really did make a difference to customers and to the bank.
Yeah. And I think this question is a really important one. And I encourage you all to do it, is to think about the impact that you're making, because it does go beyond, it goes beyond the day job, and it has real meaning, and it can give you kind of the bolster to keep going. I've been given hand signs at the back there, which means we're slowly towards the end. Now that first question may be anonymous, but I bet £50 to charity I could guess who it is. Now, Johanna, you mentioned there about being holistic with yourself. And that's why I drew on it about you being a career woman, in the fact that you're busy at home and you're busy at work. That's why I made the point, because you'd raised it. And I'm going to put it to the rest of you, because democracy. I'd like to know from each of you, how do you balance that? You know, clearly from the answers you've given, you're very, very good data leaders. You've still got a home life as well. How do you work holistically to make sure you are being the best person at work, at home, and managing all of that? I'm going to ask it. Sam, I'll come to you first.
So clear communication is the thing that works everywhere. It's like, this is what's going to be, the next month is going to be hellish. Expect this, and then I will come up and then we'll have this nice time. And it's that. I don't have kids, but I'm a semi-professional drummer. That's my
Oh, wow.
So that's what I balance with, and also I do have a partner. So it's fitting everything in, and on both sides being like, hey, this is when I can focus more and do less at other times. It's the only way I've managed to balance it.
No, love that.
So let's have all of the details. So we need partner, kids, we need proximity.
I was going to say, I'm not sure I've completely solved this one. No, I mean, it's clear communication, boundaries, and then it's teamwork, isn't it? I mean, you both have ups and downs and the peaks. through time, and knowing what gives you energy as well, because sometimes when you're in a really tough spot, you kind of need to remember to recharge, or recharge as a couple or as a family. So.
A wing and a prayer is the way I describe it. So I'm the junior member of our family is the way I describe it. So my wife runs Saatchi & Saatchi. So I'm generally accepting of the fact that her job is way more important than I am, and my role in life is frankly to support her to be brilliant. And that is just simply how we operate. Lottie is 7, Kitty is 4. They are remarkably patient with us, it's fair to say, although we'll see. You know, Claire's away in Spain. She's gone away for Girls' Weekend. So tonight, at some stage, I'm going to have to run away and maybe get home so the babysitter doesn't have to stay till the middle of the night. But we just get through it very simply through a lot of juggling, a lot of patience, and just, you know, I'm very much the view that I'm there to support her, and I will make the sacrifice and I'll kind of create the space for it. And hopefully that means I can retire early at some stage. That'll be amazing. So it's an investment in the future, I would say. But, you know, and we're lucky we have a lot of, I'm only half joking. But there's a you know, serious point to this, which is we're very lucky that, you know, we are in a situation where we have help and support around us, which gives us the flexibility to do what we do. But, you know, we're very clear on where the dynamics are, who has to give and take at various times. And, you know, to this point, we've been very lucky. Both our careers have kind of ebbed and flowed at different times.
Yeah.
So, you know, Claire was on maternity leave when I was going into a new job. Claire stepped up when I'd been in a job for a time, so I could just kind of flex a little bit more. At some stage, that flexibility, as we're seeing right now, has gone, and actually it's really bloody tough. And, you know, but, you know, she needs to succeed, and we'll make that work.
Yeah. Jen, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Oh no, that question wasn't for me.
Yeah. And you know what, the way that, and it brings to a nice end actually, because I get to read all the feedback forms for the mentorship program, and one of the biggest things that we get told each year is how nice it is to be in a room of people that are like me, because in our organizations it can feel quite lonely at times. And I think, you know, when we talk about legacy, we talk about impact, we talk about being a good data leader, is actually coming into these rooms. You're all doing great things by being here, and actually talking about the hardships, talking about the opportunities, not just from a business sense, but from a people sense. Because, you know, back before I had my son, there was a whole fleet of people here offering advice and, you know, going into that new journey. And I really reveled in that, and I felt like I was part of something bigger, and that certainly helped me. And I'm sure there's many people that could share in that story. But a weird tangent for us to go down, but you know what? I'm going to embrace it, and I love it. So thank you to each of you for joining me on stage tonight.
Thank you.
Let's just try and recap. So we had obviously 3 panel discussions, 2 roundtables. Tried to keep notes as I was going. It was all a bit of a blur, if I'm really honest. But I think the first one obviously being the biggest challenges in data analytics and AI right now. That conversation kind of just got absorbed into the whole AI piece. I think there were some key things that came out of that. Regulation a necessity, but actually the legislation around it is still quite high level, contextual, fundamentally all about trust as it relates to AI and adoption and things like that. I think was a big talking point, a big thread. And I guess cutting through the hype tended to be around aligning it to the business strategy, making the right bets, and maybe the low-hanging fruits that a lot of businesses are trying to kind of roll out at the minute are maybe not the right bets. Daniel Hume being the ever controversial, I guess. Second session then was obviously all around creating value, a topic that we constantly discuss and debate. I think a couple of key themes out of that. You know, we talked about how to move from a technological kind of the perception of being a technological function into a business value creation function. That the key thing there for me was probably it came down to aligning value to strategy, picking the right stakeholders, so kind of having a partnership-led approach, and actually scalability and reusability was something that kind of kept coming up quite a lot in terms of the prioritization frameworks that those people were kind of using. Amy very passionately talked about some projects that got culled for various reasons, and I guess the importance of that, and I think that kind of led into value does definitely mean different things in the context of different organizations. The round tables, so I mean, I've said this many times before, right? Ethics always makes its way onto these slides. Nobody ever votes for it. right? Everyone talks about how important it is, and then when we give you the opportunity, nobody wants to take it. However, I think the key thing for me was that we also gave you the choice to vote for an AI-based topic in the roundtable, and maybe we're all just overhyped and overdone on that because not many people voted for that, and that didn't win. So I think that was pretty telling. And broadly speaking, I don't think dashboards are dev. It's probably fair to say. And then obviously in the last session here, we talked about how data can potentially change the world, and there was things in there about, you know, societal impact, the importance of building relationships with customers, how that may be different in different countries, you know, how that impacts cultures of organizations and the relationship with cultures of different countries and things like that. We talked about using data to solve, you know, problems around global pandemics and things like that. So I think it's fair to say that data can definitely be used for good. The big piece on the impact being about enabling others rather than trying to own that piece. And then I think Johanna made a really interesting point about understanding leadership styles. So your own, the kind of the culture that you're in, the leadership styles of your stakeholders. And there was quite a few threads around people coming together to kind of, you know, in times of crisis and need, just doing what needed to be done to do the right thing, which I thought was really, really good. Fundamentally, all about people. So that kind of concludes the day. Obviously, want to thank everybody for coming. So, you know, it doesn't go unnoticed to us that you are very busy. You have, you know, very high profile jobs. Being able to kind of take time out of your day to come to things like that, we don't take for granted. People flown in from Europe and stuff like that, right? So it's pretty crazy when we think about that. Thanks to all the panelists for coming on and sharing their stories, sharing their wisdom. We really appreciate that. All you people that helped to chair the discussion, and just all of you in general for the kind of contribution. Obviously, massive thanks to the sponsors. I know I talked about this at the start, but, you know, without them, these types of things just don't happen fundamentally. And I think we are quite selective, is probably the right word, on kind of bringing partners in that we like and trust and think can add genuine value to the ecosystem. So make sure they get the time and attention that they deserve, please. Obviously, massive thank you to the Orbition team in general. It's been a massive team effort, and I'd just like to ask everyone to give Kat a massive round of applause.